New York is about to get a facelift that'll make its skyline unrecognizable. We're not talking about another glass tower or a trendy food hall. We're talking about projects so massive, so audacious, that they'll reshape how 8.3 million people live, work and move through America's most crowded city. And the crazy part? Most of them will be finished before your next presidential election. So buckle up, because New York is about to go full beast mode on infrastructure. Let's start underground. Way underground. Project number 7. The 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. The 2nd Avenue Subway has been a running joke since 1929. Politicians have been promising this thing since before your grandparents were born. The first phase finally opened in 2017. And New Yorkers treated it like the second coming. Why? Because the alternative was stuffing yourself into the Lexington Avenue line, which moves more people per hour than any other subway line in the Western Hemisphere. It's not a commute, it's a full contact sport. But here's where it gets interesting. Phase 2 isn't just about adding 3 more stations. It's about fundamentally changing how the Upper East Side connects to the rest of Manhattan. Right now, if you live above 96th Street on the East Side, you're basically in transit Siberia. The new extension will run from 96th Street to 125th Street, adding stops at 106th, 116th, and 125th. That's 3 new stations serving East Harlem, a neighborhood that's been transit-starved for a century. The price tag? A cool $8 billion. For 3 stations, that's roughly $2.6 billion per station, which makes it one of the most expensive subway projects per mile in human history. Why so expensive? Try digging tunnels under a city where every square inch is already occupied by water mains, gas lines, electrical cables, and 100-year-old infrastructure that wasn't properly documented, because record-keeping in 1920 was basically a guy with a notebook and a prayer. Construction crews are using tunnel boring machines that cost more than a fleet of private jets. These mechanical monsters chew through Manhattan bedrock at a blistering pace of about 50 feet per day. At that rate, you could almost keep up with them by walking. Almost. But the payoff is huge. Once completed, an estimated 300,000 additional riders per day will use this extension. That's a mid-sized city's worth of people getting better access to jobs, healthcare, and everything else New York offers. And here's the kicker. This isn't even the final phase. Phases 3 and 4 are already in planning, though nobody's brave enough to put a completion date on those yet. The full vision? A complete 2nd Avenue line running from Harlem all the way down to the financial district. If they finish it by 2075, throw a party. Penn Station reconstruction. Let's talk about America's busiest transportation hub. And no, it's not some gleaming temple of modern design. It's Penn Station, a claustrophobic dungeon that makes you question your life choices the moment you descend into it. More than 600,000 people pass through this underground maze every single day. That's more than LaGuardia and JFK airports combined. The original Penn Station, demolished in 1963, was an architectural masterpiece modeled after Roman baths. Massive columns, soaring ceilings, natural light flooding through enormous windows. It was the kind of building that made you believe in human achievement. Then New York knocked it down to build Madison Square Garden, and the current Penn Station, which looks like it was designed by someone who genuinely hated commuters. But redemption is coming. The new Penn Station reconstruction project, officially called the Penn Station Access Project, is a $7 billion overhaul that will completely transform this underground hellscape into something that doesn't make you want to cry. The plan includes expanding the station footward into the adjacent James A.B. Farley Post Office building, which was already converted into Moynihan Train Hall in 2021. But that was just Phase 1. Phase 2 will gut and rebuild the existing Penn Station concourses, adding natural light through new skylights, widening corridors, and generally making the space feel less like a Soviet-era subway station. They're also adding new entrances, improved signage, and modern amenities that other developed countries have had for decades. You know, radical concepts like knowing which track your train is on more than 3 minutes before departure. But here's what really matters. Penn Station isn't just a New York problem. It's a national problem. This is where Amtrak's Northeast Corridor runs through, connecting Boston to Washington, D.C. It's where New Jersey Transit brings in hundreds of thousands of suburban commuters. It's where the Long Island Railroad funnels in even more. When Penn Station doesn't work, the entire eastern seaboard feels it. The project also includes infrastructure improvements that sound boring but are actually revolutionary. New signaling systems, track upgrades, expanded platforms. But they're what allow more trains to run more frequently, without crashing into each other. Revolutionary stuff. Critics say $7 billion is insane for a train station renovation. And they're right. It is insane. But you know what's more insane? Doing nothing. And watching America's economic engine sputter because its busiest station is falling apart. Project number 5. The Brooklyn-Queens Connector. Imagine a modern streetcar system connecting Brooklyn and Queens along the waterfront. 17 miles of track linking neighborhoods that have basically zero direct transit connections right now. Williamsburg, Greenpoint, Long Island City, Astoria, Sunset Park. All connected by a sleek, modern tram system that doesn't require going through Manhattan first. Right now, if you want to go from Williamsburg to Astoria, you have two options. Drive through some of the worst traffic in America, or take a subway route, so convoluted you'll question the existence of a benevolent deity. You'd literally have to go into Manhattan and back out. It's like having to fly to Atlanta to get anywhere in the country. The Brooklyn-Queens Connector, lovingly nicknamed the BQX, would change that. The proposed system would run entirely on street level, using dedicated lanes to zip passengers up and down the Brooklyn and Queens waterfront. Total cost? Around $2.7 billion. Which tells you how desensitized we've become to billion-dollar price tags. But here's where it gets controversial. Super sans ras ra. Inflexible. And basically fancy buses. They're not entirely wrong. Streetcars run on fixed tracks. So if something blocks the line, everything stops. No workarounds. You just sit there and contemplate your choices. Plus, $2.7 billion could buy a lot of buses. Really nice buses. Buses with heated seats and Wi-Fi and little massage functions. Supporters counter that streetcars attract development in ways buses never do. There's something permanent about rail that makes developers take notice. When you build a streetcar line, you're making a 50-year commitment to that corridor. Developers see that commitment and start planning apartment buildings, restaurants, shops. Suddenly, neglected industrial waterfront becomes vibrant mixed-use neighborhoods. And the waterfront communities along this route desperately need better transit. These neighborhoods have exploded in population over the last 20 years. But the infrastructure hasn't kept up. The G train, which serves some of these areas, is basically a joke. It's the only subway line that doesn't connect to Manhattan. And it runs so infrequently that seeing a train feels like spotting a unicorn. The BQX is currently in the planning and environmental review phase, which in New York terms means it might happen sometime between tomorrow and the heat death of the universe. But momentum is building. Federal funding is being pursued. Local politicians are making supportive noises. If the stars align, construction could begin in 2025 with service starting around 2029. Don't hold your breath, but also don't dismiss it entirely. Project number 4. LaGuardia Airport Terminal B, which until recently was arguably the worst major airport in the developed world. Vice President Joe Biden once compared it to a third-world country. And he wasn't entirely wrong. The old LaGuardia was a cramped, dingy, dysfunctional mess that made travelers question whether New York had given up on itself. But something remarkable happened. New York decided to completely demolish and rebuild LaGuardia from scratch. Not renovate. Not upgrade. Demolish and rebuild. The project is being done in phases so the airport can keep operating, which is like performing open-heart surgery on yourself while running a marathon. Terminal B is the crown jewel of this transformation. And it's already mostly complete. The new terminal opened in 2020, and walking through it feels like entering a completely different airport. Soaring ceilings, natural light everywhere, modern amenities that don't feel like they were designed in 1973. There are charging stations, multiple charging stations, with outlets that actually work. It's almost too much. The terminal includes 35 gates, modern shops and restaurants, and a unified design that doesn't make you feel like you're navigating a maze designed by someone who hated travelers. Total project cost for the entire LaGuardia overhaul is around $8 billion, with Terminal B representing about $4 billion of that. This project is being delivered on time and on budget through a public-private partnership. In New York. On time. On budget, those words rarely appear in the same sentence when discussing New York construction projects. The private consortium building it has actual financial incentives to finish on schedule, which turns out to be a pretty good motivator. The new Terminal B can handle about 17 million passengers per year, up from the old terminal's capacity, and it's designed with expansion in mind. As air travel continues to grow, the terminal can add gates and facilities without requiring another complete demolition. Critics say $8 billion for an airport is excessive, especially when that money could go to subway improvements or affordable housing. They have a point. But airports are economic engines. LaGuardia handles over 30 million passengers per year. When your airport is a dysfunctional embarrassment, it hurts the entire city's reputation. First impressions matter. And for millions of visitors, LaGuardia is their first impression of New York. The new LaGuardia won't be the best airport in the world. It won't even be the best airport in New York, because JFK exists. But it will be competent, modern, and functional. For LaGuardia, that's basically a miracle. Project number 3, the Gateway Program. This is the big one. The project that could determine whether the Northeast Corridor functions or collapses over the next 50 years. The Gateway Program is a $16 billion infrastructure megaproject that will build new rail tunnels under the Hudson River connecting New Jersey to New York. Why does this matter? Because right now, all Amtrak and New Jersey Transit trains going into Penn Station use the existing North River tunnels, which were built in 1910. These tunnels are 113 years old. They're held together by prayer and the desperate hopes of engineers who know they're operating on borrowed time. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 flooded these tunnels with salt water, causing massive damage that's never been fully repaired. The tunnels operate at reduced capacity because sections need constant maintenance. If one of these tunnels fails completely, it would be an economic catastrophe. We're talking hundreds of thousands of commuters unable to get to work, Amtrak service crippled, billions in economic losses. The Gateway Program will build 2 new tunnels under the Hudson, rehabilitate the existing tunnels, and expand Penn Station's track capacity. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it's absolutely critical. This is infrastructure that keeps the entire Northeast functioning. Caught in political fights over funding, the federal government, New York, and New Jersey have all argued over who should pay what. Meanwhile, those 100-year-old tunnels keep getting older. But progress is happening. In 2021, the project received federal approval and funding commitments. Construction on some elements has begun. The full project won't be complete until 2035, but components will come online before then. The first new tunnel could be operational by 2030, which would immediately relieve pressure on the existing tunnels. $16 billion sounds like a lot, and it is. But the alternative is watching the economic heart of the East Coast seize up when those old tunnels finally give out. That's not a cost anyone wants to calculate. Project number 2, the Essex Crossing development. Let's shift from infrastructure to urban development. Essex Crossing is a massive mixed-use development on the Lower East Side, built on land that sat vacant for decades. We're talking about 9 buildings spread across 6 acres, including residential apartments, retail space, a movie theater, a market-line food hall, and affordable housing units. This project represents a new model for New York development. It's not just luxury condos for millionaires. It includes 500 affordable housing units, which in Manhattan terms is basically a housing miracle. The development also includes community facilities, cultural spaces, and ground-floor retail that serves actual neighborhood needs. Not just another bank branch or Starbucks. The project has been in development since 2013 and is now substantially complete, with the final buildings wrapping up by 2024. Total investment is around $1.1 billion, which for Manhattan real estate is almost reasonable. Essex Crossing sits in one of Manhattan's most historically significant neighborhoods. The Lower East Side was the entry point for millions of immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It's where the American dream got its start for countless families. But the neighborhood has struggled with vacant lots and underdevelopment for decades. This project fills that gap while trying to maintain the neighborhood's character. The Market Line, a sprawling underground food market, pays homage to the area's history of pushcart vendors and street markets. The affordable housing ensures longtime residents aren't completely priced out. The cultural spaces provide venues for community programming. Is it perfect? No. Gentrification concerns are real. Longtime residents worry about rising rents in surrounding buildings. Some argue the affordable housing component isn't large enough. These are legitimate concerns that don't have easy answers. But Essex Crossing demonstrates that large-scale development in New York doesn't have to be exclusively for the ultra-wealthy. It shows that mixed-income, mixed-use projects can work in one of the most expensive real estate markets on Earth. That's a model worth replicating.
Project number 1.
Saved the best for last. This project will bring Metro North service to the Bronx for the first time, adding 4 new stations in the eastern Bronx and connecting them to Manhattan's Penn Station. This is massive for a borough that's been historically underserved by transit. Right now, if you live in the eastern Bronx and want to get to Manhattan, your options are limited and slow. The subway doesn't reach many neighborhoods. Buses are packed and unreliable. Commute times of 90 minutes each way aren't uncommon. That's 3 hours a day spent traveling. That's a part-time job's worth of time just getting to and from your actual job. The Metro North expansion will add stations at Hunts Point, Parkchester, Morris Park, and Co-op City. These neighborhoods represent hundreds of thousands of residents who will suddenly have direct rail access to Manhattan. Projected commute times will drop by 30 to 50 minutes in some cases. That's life-changing. The project costs around $700 million and includes track improvements, new station construction, and service integration with existing Metro North lines. It's expected to be completed by 2027, which in New York infrastructure terms is practically tomorrow. But the real impact goes beyond transportation. Better transit access drives economic development. Businesses locate near good transit. Property values increase. Job opportunities expand. For neighborhoods that have struggled with disinvestment and poverty, better transit access can be transformative. The Bronx has the highest poverty rate of any county in New York State. Unemployment is higher than the city average. These are communities that need economic opportunity, and transit access is a key driver of opportunity. You can't take a job if you can't get there. You can't access healthcare if getting to the hospital takes 2 hours. You can't pursue education if the commute to school is impossible. This project recognizes that infrastructure is social policy. Where you build transit determines who gets opportunity. For too long, the Bronx has been on the wrong side of that equation. The Metro North expansion starts to correct that imbalance. So there you have it. 7 megaprojects that will reshape New York by 2030. Some are flashy, some are invisible, but all of them represent billions of dollars in investment and decades of planning. Will they all be completed on time? Probably not. This is New York, where construction timelines are more like gentle suggestions than actual commitments. But the work is happening. The money is flowing. New York will look and function differently than it does today. Whether that's better or worse depends on who you ask. But it'll definitely be different. And in a city that never stops changing, that's about as certain as anything gets.